Hi, I'm the History Guy. I have a degree in history and I love history. And if you love history too, this is the channel for you. The world is currently remembering the 100th anniversary of the War to End All Wars. More than 16 million people died in the First World War fought between July of 1914 and November of 1918. And there are many forgotten stories of that war that deserve to be remembered. But one of the more interesting ones is the little-known fact that one of the greatest heroes of the French army in the First World War was, in fact, an American. And while he was a great hero in France, he was barely acknowledged in the United States. And that's too bad, because not only is his a story worth remembering, but it's a story from which America could certainly learn. And so today we are going to remember the extraordinary story of Eugene Jacques Bullard, the Black Swallow of Death. Eugene Bullard was born in 1895 in Columbus, Georgia, the son of William Bullard, who had come from the French island of Martinique and spoke French in his home. The family history was interesting. They had been slaves in the French colony of Haiti and had been moved from Haiti to Martinique to avoid the slave rebellion in Haiti. Eventually, his family had escaped and moved to the United States, where they found refuge with the Creek Indians. Bullard's mother was a Creek Indian, although she died while he was young. At the age of 12, he stowed away on a German freighter bound for Scotland. He was trying to escape racial hatred in the United States, where he had seen his father nearly lynched. His goal was to move to France, where his father had told him that people were accepted regardless of the color of their skin. In Scotland, he became a successful boxer and eventually earned enough money to fulfill his dream and move to Paris. When the Great War came to France, he was too young to enlist, but on his 19th birthday, he signed up with other Americans to join the famed French Foreign Legion. With the French Foreign Legion, he saw some of the most terrible fighting of that terrible war, including the horrible Battle of the Somme and the bloody Champagne Offensive. What was really surprising at the time was that he survived. In some of these battles, his regiment took as much as 80% losses. By the end of 1915, the losses couldn't be replaced and his regiment was dissolved, but the surviving volunteers were allowed to join French Metropolitan Army units, and so Bullard chose to join the 170th Infantry, one of the most elite units of the French army. The unit symbol was a swallow, and they were known as Le Hirondelle de la Mort, the Swallows of Death. And as the only black man in the regiment, he therefore got his famous nickname, the Black Swallow of Death. With the 170th, he saw a new definition of war as he was taken to the Battle of Verdun. A veteran of some of the worst fighting in history, he said of Verdun, "No one has ever seen anything like Verdun, not ever before, nor ever since." In March of 1916, he took a terrible wound at Verdun, so terrible that they thought he might never walk again. He was awarded two of the highest military honors in the French army, the Croix de Guerre and the Médaille Militaire. He was a bona fide war hero. You might think that as a veteran of the Somme and Verdun, and having won two of the highest awards in French history, and having taken a grievous wound, that Bullard had done his bit for the war, especially considering that he wasn't even a French citizen. But he was not the sort of person to give up. No longer fit for the infantry, he signed up for the French Flying Corps, and on May 5th, 1917, he earned his wings. He was the first known black fighter pilot in the world, and one of only two known in the First World War. He flew with over 200 other American volunteers in the famed Lafayette Flying Corps and flew over 20 combat missions. But then he would again see the flaws in the country of his birth. While he was always accepted in the French military, when America entered the war, he with other Lafayette pilots tried to join the American Flying Corps. The other pilots were accepted, but Bullard was not, because it seemed America would not stomach a black pilot. Later, he got into an altercation with a French officer and was booted from the French Flying Corps back to the 170th Regiment, where he finished the war. When he finished, he was one of France's most decorated warriors, a national hero, and yet still virtually unknown in the United States. After the war, he worked in a famous French nightclub and eventually started one of his own called the Escadrille. He became friends with some of the most famous people of his day: Josephine Baker, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong. He married a countess and they had 2 daughters, although that eventually ended in divorce. It was a good time, but in 1940, war again came to France. As he was fluent in both French and German, he would gather intelligence for the French in his nightclub from the German people that would still patronize his nightclub. But as the German army approached Paris, he escaped with his daughters south to Orleans and joined the French 41st Regiment. There, in a brave attack where every other member of his unit was killed and he was grievously wounded, his friends realized that if he was captured by the Gestapo, they would kill him, and so they managed to smuggle he and his daughters through neutral Spain back to the United States. Unlike France, in the United States, he wasn't famous, and his wound was serious and took a long time to recover. It was difficult to find work, but eventually he found employment as an elevator operator in New York's Rockefeller Center. Still unknown and unacknowledged in the United States, he was still a great hero in France, and in 1959 his service in 2 wars was recognized when France made him a Knight of the Legion of Honor, the highest award for service to the country of France. It was only then that he received some notice in the United States, being interviewed on NBC's Today Show. He wore his uniform as an elevator operator because, of course, he operated the elevator in the same building in which the Today Show was filmed. When he passed away in 1961, he was buried under the tricolor flag with French full military honors by the Federation of French War Officers. What is maybe most amazing about Eugene Bullard is that he never stopped loving the United States. This is a country that he had to flee for fear for his life because of racial hatred, a country that had denied him the right to fight on their behalf. And yet in 1959, when he was awarded the Legion of Honor, he said, "America is my mother, and I love my mother. But as far as France is concerned, she is my mistress, and you love your mistress more than you love your mother, but in a different way." America finally showed him a little of that love back when in 1994 they posthumously made him a lieutenant in the United States Air Force, acknowledging that they had erred when they had denied him that right 77 years earlier. That honor came 33 years after his death, a late acknowledgement from the country of his birth and the country that he never stopped loving. I'm the History Guy. Hope you enjoyed this edition of my series, 5 Minutes of History, short snippets of forgotten history, 5 to 10 minutes long. If you did enjoy them, please click that thumbs up button that's there on your left. If you have any questions or comments, then feel free to write them in the comment section and I will be happy to respond. And if you'd like 5 minutes more of forgotten history, all you need to do is click the subscribe button that is there on your right.